That's pretty hardcore. Okay, that's me. Yeah. I do security engineering for a consulting firm here in Raleigh. Um, my personal research or wireless realm of technology, Bluetooth most of the time, and portable stuff. I used to say mobile, but that's like mobile obviously means phone now because nothing else can be mobile. So I have to say portable, which is a lot of what we were talking about today. My website where I post most of my stuff whenever I get around to posting. Preamble, don't be a kitty. You learn, for the people that haven't kind of cons before and stuff, you learn a lot of stuff here you can do bad things with. So I don't need to say more. That's just short preamble. Okay, so the focus of this talk, basically, leave your computer at home. I realized this week that in labeling it hack from a library, people might think, oh, software library, like that's not the focus of this at all. This is actually from let's say from a computer that's not yours. So that's the talk. It's not actually libraries. There's no coding involved. So just to clarify. So what can you do without your system that you've got? You're pre-configured. I've got my desktop or laptop. It's a Haas. Everything's set up, ready to go. But what if that's taken away? You have to go in well, here's some of the scenarios that I just came off the top of my head. You're doing a pen test or whatever, and you have to go in, and maybe you're doing some social engineering where it would be awkward to have a laptop in. You're going for an interview for some sales job, and you're carrying a laptop, and that just seems odd. So some other way you would want to do that. A real world, it's a scenario where they want to say somebody comes in off the street out of nowhere, and it's whatever. Incident response. Sometimes you have to get to it quick. If you're out to dinner, but you have to respond immediately, and it's not at your office. You have to go off-site. What do you have on you that you can do incident response with? Backup plan. If you're all set to do your assessment and your hard drive just craps out, what are you going to do? If you don't want to, a lot of these are very timed engagements. Your time is precious. So if you just flew out somewhere or drove somewhere or whatever, and you don't have the backup plan, you're screwed, and the customers are ticked off. People sometimes call you out on your skills. So it might be late at night. People are like, "Oh, you're a hacker, whatever you can't do," and so you got to prove yourself on their system that they gave you permission. Not like, "Hey, you should go attack Sony." That might be effective, but you could possibly get in trouble with that. And because you can, that's why I put this stuff together mostly. It's because you could. I think that's how most of these things end up coming out. It's like, oh, whatever, I can do it, so I do. So it's not your computer. So this is a computer that what? Framing someone. Yes, you can frame someone with this. Yep. And the backup. The backup. Well, I won, the contest, or I got second in the contest early. It's, from carrying around multiple cell phones. All right. We're not going to mention that contest because, it's recorded. All right. So this is an unfamiliar system where basically, a lot of assessments you might do your in-map scan and become familiar before you start really delving into stuff. We'll just assume, for the context of this presentation, it's mostly unfamiliar. I mean, probably when you walk up to a system, when you see it, you can say that's going to run Windows, that's running OS X. It's a server. It might be running a Unix variant. But you're coming in just with that brief knowledge. There's not a lot of prep. The access to these systems, it's not for the purpose of stealing them to sell them on eBay or Craigslist or whatever. That's not our goal here. It's to utilize them or gather information from them. So we're getting access to these systems. That's not our intention. It's to use them. Hopefully, in theory, possibly, you would not have administrative privileges to these systems, in theory, and that's kind of what we'll be working with today. These are systems that you're not going after specifically the sysadmin's box somewhere. But using other stuff in a public or private domain. So that's kind of our pretext to what we're talking about. Public computers. Restrictions, a physical restriction, there's not much because they're public. They're supposed to be used by either the general public or a subset of, maybe you're a member of somewhere or you're, somewhere for a little, I don't know. There's And you're given public access to it. There's very little restrictions. Virtual, again, hopefully you're not the system administrator on these systems, but that never happens. So hopefully they've locked it down a little more. That's what you would assume. That's not always the case. The death of the desktop has made that a little more difficult to just find computers, out in the world. How many people here have/use their desktop at home? And we're in the, this is the epitome of the crowd that would be doing that. Not many people, everybody's got laptops now. Everybody's got laptops. I know people that just use their smartphone. They don't own a computer. Or, tablets. I mean, the people don't even have, what we consider, we refer to a computer, laptop, nettop, whatever. They're just using their mobile phone / larger version of the mobile phone as their systems. They've got it around. Everybody's got it. They're very cheap now. So, whereas 10 years ago, everybody had desktops because laptops were so expensive, or they were still working off their old hardware. Everybody has mobile devices now. So the places that normally provide desktops, it's rarer and rarer to see them. However, they're still around. Here, libraries, almost all public libraries have public computers. Again, that's a membership thing. Normally you have to sign up. Sometimes you have to sign up, sometimes you don't, to use those systems. College campuses, it's the same exact scenario as a library. They try to provide public computers, and sometimes you need to have a student credentials and not. Cyber cafes, I've not found one here. I moved here recently. I Googled it, and apparently there's at least one in Raleigh. Has anybody actually ever been to one in this area? They closed down. I'm pretty sure that's the... What's the one near... Yeah, I mean, that's who's their target demographic now? Free at the library, and everybody else has one, so it's not very common now. Hotels have them. Computer stores, certain computer stores that might be across the street from this location that love to have people come in and just check their email, log into Facebook, do anything they want, and there's no restrictions on their use. Camera shops, and this was kind of a segue into, I haven't done much research in this realm, but if you're using a kiosk, it's a publicly available computer that you might not normally think of it as that, but it is. It's a back end, stuff, printers. There's other things like that that are kind of different functions. You don't have a keyboard and mouse, and you're not, it's very restricted functionality, but it's probably running Windows XP in the back end, and you have some sort of interface. I mean, a lot of these camera shops, you've got your media readers, you've got a USB one. Some of them do have keyboards and mice and stuff like that. So think of that, food kiosks. There's a lot of computers out there that you can access. There's other ones that like the menu at a Burger King is probably running XP in the background, but you don't really have access to it. It's there, but that would be an interesting assessment, trying to mess with that. But that's not what we're talking about today. All right, public computers. Yeah, so here's some that I've come across recently that I just snapped a shot of. Don't just use these. That's not what I'm suggesting here. These are just examples. If you had permission, that you could screw with stuff. Private computers. We're talking personal computers, business systems here. Physical access, obviously, more restrictive. You probably have them, in the building, behind locked doors, possibly. Somebody's watching out for them, using them, whatever. Virtual access, they what was being discussed in the last talk. I mean, you start out with good intentions of, we're going to lock this down. Oh, you need to take off semantic for a while. Well, I'll uninstall it now because that's what I'm getting in my ear. But, when do I reinstall it? I'll get around to it. So you would assume they'd be restricted at some, but not necessarily at a very, you can only run this application kind of level. It varies a lot. Where do you find these? Offices. Campus, I mean, if these are student computers, if, that's the kind of thing you might have in scope, not normally, but, just stuff to think about. People's homes, a lot of people work from home, so you can find that in scope for an assessment somehow. People bringing their laptops to a cafe, they go to the bathroom for a while. You can, you got a 5-minute window. Libraries, again, same thing, study. People go to their study. Cons, people leave their laptops lying around. Or connecting to the Wi-Fi, yeah. Private computers. So this one in the middle I grabbed off the Hack Security website. That's what they're running with. That's their Uber systems there. If you can't see, it's the boat anchor IMAX. Yeah. So these are I just took this like 10 minutes ago. The picture of me at the restaurant. I didn't really took the picture, so I didn't bail on it. But you see that kind of stuff fairly often. I mean, some people are pretty cautious, but you never know. You see that stuff lying around. Okay, so moving on. Those are the computer side. That's kind of our target systems there. So Katana. I put this together, so it made putting the talk together a lot easier. What is it? So it's a platform. Is probably the best word for it. It's basically a consolidation of a lot of tools that other people who are really smart put together, and I just bundled them, essentially. There's two parts to it. One of them is the Katana Toolkit Live, which is a bunch of portable applications that run in Windows live, and the other one is the live distributions, like Backtrack, and we'll cover more of those. But that's kind of the two major components. Part of the focus of this project was to create an environment that was configurable. So if you're doing lots of forensics, you can configure it to do a lot of forensic stuff and maybe throw the other stuff by the wayside, or the opposite. Or if you're getting into the security field, this is good because you've got it all kind of sitting there, and you can tinker with different things. So you can either broad scope it, update it, install it. I basically wanted something that I didn't have to carry around a case of CDs. We all have those cases of CDs, probably still some floppy drives, or floppy disks that we use for stuff used. Does anybody still use the floppy disk for things on a semi-regular basis? There's hands and heads now. Yeah. So does anybody not know what a floppy disk is? It's a disk. It's about that. Yeah. They still. Yeah. Yeah. I know. I have some tenants floppy disks. Yeah. That's how nerdy I am. But I also wanted an updatable environment because a lot of these live systems, you find they're awesome, but if they're running live, you can't really modify stuff. So that's a little spiel about that. To make it easier, it runs off a USB flash drive. So that was something you can keep on you all the time instead of a big honking. Like we had something. I was at Virginia Tech as a student there, and I worked in the IT security office, and we had the tomb of software. And it's that like 500 CD binder that's like this big. You have you're basically a repository for certain distros at that point because you burn every new version. You're like, well, maybe I'll need CentOS 4 at some point, so I'll keep it in there. That's to avoid that, we consolidate on one medium. No crazy partitioning stuff. I'm a big fan of trying to keep as much resources as you can. So anybody who's ever dual booted, normally you partition off stuff, and that was a big focus of the project, so that makes it easier. That's a little background on the tool that we're going to be working with today. Hardware. I suggest an 8 gig, just for starters. It's about 5 gig on Unpack, but if you're going to be doing stuff, modifying or downloading files or whatever, 8 gig's good for a bottom line. They're like $15. They cost nothing now. You can get a flash drive, and this is what I've been working with more recently, which is really cool. It's a micro SD card, getting a USB reader, and then an SD plus a USB reader. And I'm going to go why that's really cool later on in the talk. I like to have a data drive as well for these kind of systems. It's good to be able to segregate. What? A date drive. Where's? No, I didn't. Yeah, so it's a fail. I can't find my. It's only water. So but you got to yell drink. So I feel like that's more of anything. If you can't read, I found this the other day. I've had this thing since I was like 14 years old. I don't know where I got it or why I was awesome. That only here does that. Yeah. So you have a date drive because you're lonely. Anyway, I'd like to put a data drive so you can put all your stuff all the things that you're finding, whatever external stuff, just put it on there. There's a folder in Katana. I try to structure it with documents folder. But if you're working on assessment, it's sometimes nice to, you've got your environment here, put their stuff over and something else. So flash drive, portable hard drive, whatever. So this is the setup that I've been working with now. it looks like a lot of moving parts. They almost all like fit in together. You've got a, where's the laser pointer? Vic, who had the laser pointer? Vic, he's not listening to me. Woo! Okay, it's not that important. Do you have the laser pointer? He's still not listening. I'm making eye contact. Okay, we'll just move on. I'll pretend. I just want to do a pretend laser pointer. I know, I'm not going to. So I'll be giving it away as a prize later on. The prize is for who can run the fastest. This thing is slick. Well, rechargeable batteries, very good. He reassembles it every time. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. So, say micro SD card. This is a little reader for the micro SD card. It's plugged in up here, and it's part of the demo, so I'm not going to plug it. But it's, you can see that's a standard size flash drive, and it's very, very small. It's convenient, except for it's so small that I have things that I have to hook it onto something because it's literally like the size of a thumbnail. So it's very easy to lose. I haven't lost it yet, but it's inevitable. This is the SD card. This is a reader. You can't really see. There's the slot right there for the reader, and then the backup drive. They all kind of fit together, and it's pretty neat. So I'll be talking about that a lot more a little later on. Live booting. This is a lot of people here are very advanced. A lot of people aren't. So this is a lot of step-by-step stuff. So that's just how things go. Booting from a USB. If you've never done that before, plug in the flash drive with the system off. Select from the boot menu. Normally it's a function key and drop down. Otherwise, you can modify the boot. There's just the BIOS on my laptop. Selecting it. You want to basically most systems don't have USB storage first by default in the BIOS. It's very rare. Mostly it's like CD, hard disk, probably USB. Some of them still have like a diskette drive in case you ever hook it up there. And that kind of varies, especially with the age of the system. This could be first or second or not on there at all. And then maybe an onboard NIC. But you need to modify that so the USB is above whatever else might be booting from most of the time, the hard disk. So there's an issue with booting from it if somebody sets the BIOS password. So going from the security side, it's pretty good to set your BIOS password. It's not like the end-all, be-all, but it's one of those checkboxes you should probably. Yeah, no, I've come across it. Well, I've done it for you. Actually, that's a good point. How many people have done it on their system or for work, clients, whatever? That's a fair number here. That's really good because what does it hurt? Other than if you lose it, you have to document because you kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I thought I was going to be real smart since I had to pick the battery out. Yeah.
There's no CMOS, there's no battery like internal. Oh, okay. That's exactly what, we're going to talk about here. So, the gentleman was saying that the EEE computers, or maybe is it all models, some of them, the BIOS requires power to store stuff. So if there's no little backup battery, which is what most motherboards have, and you just pull the battery out or it drains completely, it resets to any defaults. So that's actually what we're talking about. BIOS password, you can set it to access the BIOS. You can also sometimes set it to boot. So you have to type in that's what I used to have. You boot for your disk. Just to boot, you have to do that, and then you can possibly access the BIOS. So kind of two different levels there, but we're just focused on booting. So if you can get to it from the boot menu, we don't need to bother with any of this. So as Vic mentioned, resetting them. This is let's reset the BIOS. In a desktop and possibly a laptop, if you have a lot of time and you feel like unscrewing a case, you can remove the battery for a while. Once it starts having power, it'll default off. There's normally a reset pins on the motherboard. You hit a jumper on there, reboot, and it'll reset the settings. Yeah, they don't generally like that. What are you doing? I'm just opening up and accessing the hard drive and stuff. It's cool, guys. Or I'm IT support. Social engineering. Hello. Okay. I was sent over from the other branch. Whatever. That's another topic. Not going to go too much into social engineering. We'll just put you social engineered and did this. So yeah, there's the backdoor BIOS password, which some genius was like, okay, yeah, there's a lot of them have the backdoor ones, and it's basically, I'm sure the thought process was, when these idiots lock themselves out, they're gonna call the IT support, and the guy's gonna have to tell them to open up the case and find the jumpers or find the pins for the, that's gonna happen. So like, all right, whatever, we'll just put a backdoor in there, and we'll just say, oh, use this word instead. And so that was a really good plan. And a lot of them are available. I think it's mostly for older motherboards because people kind of figured out, oh, that's dumb. And there's also password crackers for BIOSes. Some of them are executables, some of them are live CDs, because a lot of times the default is to be able to boot live CDs first, so you don't have to do a lot of this stuff for live CD. Another really cool thing is this Plop Boot Manager, and I'll show a little bit of it later on. It's a live CD that acts as a boot manager, so it'll allow you to boot from USB. It's like, to tell people about it, it sounds like, who cares? But to me, it's like really exciting, because now I don't have to screw with all this BIOS stuff, because almost always you can boot from, unless somebody really did a good job and said, this is a public computer, maybe I should never have to boot from CD unless I know the BIOS password. I'll change it so it's hard disk first, or there's ways, you can unplug the hard disk. But that's a pretty good setting. That's a good setting to have in a public computer. But how many people do that? That's, I installed Symantec, I'm out. Or maybe I set some access restrictions, but the BIOS is, pretty low on the list of things in your timeline. So anyway, if it boots from the CD drive, Plop Boot Manager is really cool alternative to messing with all that stuff, and it's almost guaranteed to work. So this is the live stuff. This is all the default tools I have in there. What I tried to do with this project is have a wide variety of and not a lot of overlap. So there are a lot of really great tools out there that I use and fully support, and they're awesome, but I didn't put them on here by default because it's already like 4 gig in size, and people like using FAT32 as a file system, especially on flash drives. So, going over, if anybody doesn't know, FAT32, max of 4 gig. So once I go over that size for the download, the forms are just going to explode. Oh, I can't download this, blah, 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 blah. So I'm trying to stick under 4, but everything is getting so big, like Backtrack doubled in size last time, which is awesome because you get a lot more tools out there. It's just more difficult for me because I'm trying to shuffle stuff around. So anyway, that's that's what was on there. I'll show you a little more in a second. So live demo number 1. Oh, fail. Yeah. So nobody calls drink anymore because they're like, I was just drinking water. It's not worth it. Oh, they don't want me to be able to talk. My voice is going. Oh, all right. Wow, that is really hard. I apologize. I don't know how to change it, but it's really hard to see. Well, it's just tiny. Can anybody? I don't know if even up front you can read it. So I'm just going to say what it is. So this is the Plop Boot Manager. It's a real shame because it's got this really cool background. It's flying through stars. Like when you look at it, it's flying through stars. I can barely see it here. There's little white lights and stuff. So we put this together, and it's tiny. It's like less than a meg. All of this. I was very impressed with it. I just know the camera's going to shut off or something. I'm not messing with stuff. I don't need to be called out again. Anyway, it's not terribly important. You can do it. Yeah, you can. Oh, this room is just haunted now. Okay, well that's slightly better. It looks better. And can anybody in the very front row kind of see that there's little stars? Okay, well, so you can trust them as well as me. Anyway, what it. All of a sudden, the back doors just slam shut, and ghosts come flying out everywhere. We are doomed. Okay, so this is the Plop Boot Manager or boot menu. It's really cool. It detects what's on the current system. So if there's multiple hard drives, it auto detects everything, and it's got the drivers for the USB or Yeah, so it's able to detect USB. You just select it. Yeah.
Okay, so if somebody has not been thorough about their security
Mhm.
and set it so that their machine will automatically do CD-ROM at first and boot priority.
Yeah.
The machine will go, it'll read from the CD-ROM and execute what's on the CD-ROM.
Yes.
Without first giving you the BIOS request.
So the question was about the BIOS request, like I talked about earlier with the issues with bypassing the BIOS. So there's the two things of one, you can set any sort of like the first thing that happens when it gets power is it blocks everything and says I loaded the BIOS. First thing I do is set a password, so you can't do anything with this system at that setting. Like that motherboard is nothing until you reset it. So in that case, you're screwed because you can't do anything with it, which is very uncommon, especially because every time if some user unplugged it, they'd have to call tech support and get a BIOS password. So that's like not going to happen in this kind of scenario. Maybe at home would be cool, but in this kind of scenario, it's not happening. But and then there's the one to access the BIOS. So it's just if you want to modify stuff in the BIOS, you have to type in a password. So in that case, this is fine because as long as they have the CD, DVD, whatever booting first, you'll get into this. So the first thing it selects is the hard drive, then it gives you the floppy drive, a CD-ROM, and USB. So we're gonna, yes, okay. The problem, VMware has been a little flaky with the USB stuff, and I've been having a lot of trouble with it, so I'm glad that went through. Back on black. All right, so this is the boot menu. For people that haven't been messing with this stuff before, I'll just very brief talk about this is Backtrack. A lot of people are familiar with it. Really, great suite for doing pen testing stuff. A lot of people that here are new, like that's something really good. If you're gonna try to do offensive testing and stuff, it's great. Ultimate Boot CD is just great for anybody who's ever touched a computer. It has all those floppy images that the companies would send out. They consolidated them, and yes, you can boot them from CD. We'll just call that Voodoo. But they put all these really useful tools together. There's dozens of really cool tools that'll test your hardware. So a lot of these aren't necessarily security stuff, but you can use a lot of it. There's a really cool tool in there for resetting the passwords in Windows systems. So if that makes it worth it altogether. So okay, that's enough on that one. It's really great stuff. If you're doing any sort of admin, you need to have Ultimate Boot CD for Windows, or Ultimate Boot CD. Ultimate Boot CD for Windows is basically a limited Windows environment. It's called PE, Windows PE. It's the thing that loads Windows. Yeah, so you have to install it in addition to this. I can't give my default licensing stuff, but it basically gives you a portable Windows environment with a bunch of awesome stuff pre-installed on it. Trinity is a lot of cool tools. Similar, I mean, it's the same vein as Ultimate Boot CD. Oafcrack fans out here. It's good, password cracking. It's not, as quick as the talk yesterday, but it's great with if you have an under 14 character password in Windows. Yeah.
If I install UBCD for Win, how much extra space?
Oh, that's a good question. He was asking how much more space the Ultimate Boot CD for Windows takes. I actually have no idea. I cannot remember. It's not a lot because it's on the CD, like it's on the Windows or XP CD, along with all of your install files. So it's very limited, but it's not very big. But they do install a lot of additional software with it. So I want to say less than a gig, but I'm not positive. Yeah, 8 gig you'd be fine. Yeah, with that 8 gig, you can get all this installed. Clonezilla, you can do network backups. Puppy, I put it in there because it's a very minimalistic version of Linux, so low resource environments. Derek's boot nuke is pretty self-explanatory. It does that. You boot it and your hard drive's gone. And conboot, speaking of dares, what can you do? Give me like 2 minutes. Plug, gone, go back, what are you doing? Oh, I've got it, it's set. Hope you backed up. Talk about ransomware. I backed up your files. Conboot is just this really cool thing that kind of circumvents / modifies Windows to allow you to boot into it. So that's, I'm not going to, well, I need to, for my demo purposes, boot C, live. VMware seems really slow through USB because I don't think many people are trying to boot USB through This is like nobody ever does this, so they don't really, there's not a big, outcry. So I don't think they've set up that much for it. Okay. We're done with you for now. Where is the mouse? There we go. Go back. Okay. Live stuff. Scripts. Scripts are awesome. And especially in these live environments, if you've never worked with them before, they're live. You can modify them while they're running, but you can't modify them and the updates and stuff. They're live. They're called live for a reason. So it's good to have scripts there to configure your environment. Time lost is point lost. So in the scenarios we kind of set up, you might be accessing, say, if you're on an assessment and you're trying to get to one of these computers, you're at somebody's office, they're out to lunch, you're not, your assessment isn't going to last for 3 days of unrestricted access. You've got, an hour to get your stuff done. So having a script that configures your environment, does everything, automates the tasks that you want to, do is great. So you could throw that on the flash drive before you start up. You can save it to the flash drive while you're doing stuff. It's the way to go for live environments. Bina for brain farts, yeah. All this here, sometimes it's just easier to write a script to do something and save it, because who wants to remember everything we have to remember? You have your repository of scripts. So it's very helpful that way. Just some simple examples, setting up a live environment for the configuration. Maybe you want to write a script to automatically download all the host systems, Microsoft-style documents or anything with passwords or something. And I'm not going to get into that much, but it's great to write these scripts in these live environments. All right, moving on to the Katana toolkit. It's got a lot of stuff in there to run off of the Windows drive or a USB drive in Windows. You don't install resources on the host system. So it's great because you're not installing whatever, like I got the box. All right, now let me put this package on there. You wait for it to install, you have to download it. This just runs live, and not in VMware very quickly, but in your host system it runs much more quickly. Configurable, updatable, talked about that quite a bit. So we're on to demo 2. Let's switch over to the, oh, no. Where are you, Windows? There we go. All right. It went to sleep, so we'll wait for it to restore. So we're going to go into a Windows 7. We were going to go into a Windows 7 VM. Let's hope this works. It's just very picky about passing through USB, so, oh. All right, let's come over. No, the other side. I need it to show up here. It's a live demo of VMware. Don't you understand? I had no phones in my pocket that time. I don't think. Okay. Excellent, the resolution's too big. Well, let's see if that gets fixed. Public user. So this is our public user account. Oh, fail. Go away. Yes. Okay, it resized. That's awesome. And it's still mounted. Okay, cool. Good. So we open up the Katana drive on this. Oh yeah, it was up. Great. That loaded quickly because it takes forever. So here's the toolkit. I tried to break everything down into areas. So office, networking, forensics, and this was a manual label. So if you install your own tools, you don't have to just update use these. You can install other portable applications. It won't be named the same way, but see, finding stuff, you just have to get used to what I labeled it under. But there's all kinds of stuff here. What did I set up for? Oh. I was going to show Firefox, but through USB on this, it just takes forever. So we'll just pick a random one up. This is a little tool for looking at cookies, which in this scenario is probably pretty good. This just the cookies running in IE. What else? There's a lot of stuff in here. I'll talk through them instead of showing all of them because they take a while to load. There's a lot of forensics. There's a lot of forensic stuff in here. There's a lot of analytics there's also virus scanners that you can use, backdoor stuff, networking, a lot of in-map. But it has this like Pigeon. You have let's see, Putty for communicating with other stuff. Firefox is on here. Portable, open office. So a lot of the things is what do you trust in the host system? Well, don't trust any. You don't have to trust much. You can bring it here. You have Netcat, which is always fun. Everybody loves Netcat. Wireshark. You have Kane. You have Metasploit, which took a little while, but I finally got it on there. Where's that? That's up at the top. Yeah. Oh, I have a laser pointer. Well, it's not my laser pointer, but I can actually point. Yeah. Okay. So you have Metasploit, SSL scanners. You have a lot of just examining registry. The Windows registry is amazing because it stores everything you really ever need to exploit anything. So these are a lot of tools that like examine the registry and recover all your passwords. Everything you thought was a cool password in Windows, it's stored in the registry and it's like in plain text. So you learn that pretty quick and you start hitting this recovery area. It says, I want your remote desktop key or password. I want your mail password, your instant messenger password, all of the passwords in Firefox. That's all the stuff in there that you can do. So I'm not going over exactly how to go through an attack. These are just, it's very broad scope what's in there. A lot of analytics on the current running systems and other utilities. Who's a Cygwin fan in here? Okay, so if you're a Windows person and you're like, Linux is scary, well, you can install Cygwin, which is simple, and it runs Unixy in your on your Windows system. So it's a lot of fun. This is probably the most powerful thing, but you have to configure it because it basically brings a lot of your Linux-capable tools over. So this is something that if people are going to get serious about using this, I recommend you mess with the Cygwin and install a lot of your stuff on there because then you have a portable environment that runs a lot of the stuff that's running in like Backtrack. You can get there's a lot of stuff already, but a lot of things like Metasploit runs on Cygwin here. There's several tools that run on Cygwin, so that's a really cool thing to get into. I even have like a key pass in there, so you don't always have to use it for this sort of thing. You can have personal use reasons for it. So anyway, that's the toolkit. Just real quick, because people ask lots of questions that are in the help. So I decided to show in the stuff for the help. Whatever. That's good. Good enough. Yeah. Oh. What's it? That's good enough there. So in this environment we're working in, it's oh no. I'll delete. That pissed it off. Give me Windows. There we go. No. This is. There we go. Yeah, don't do that anymore. So in those environments, okay, we'll go again. In those environments, you're looking at like restrictions, like not being able to install. The reason the portable is great, because a lot of them, at least the basics you should do, is not allow people to install software on your systems. I mean, that's kind of like the first thing you check off is don't let anybody install stuff. Well, this gets around it, because the installation mostly looks at the Windows executable that is used for installation. It restricts that. So you're like, oh crap, I can't install stuff. Well, if you don't need to install stuff and use that, you might be good to run stuff off of the flash drive. So that's why another thing to circumvent a lot of stuff, and other things like access to certain executables. I mean, you can say you can't access this other stuff on there, but you can run these portable ones because there's no rules for this random environment coming in there. So that's a good place to start. I don't know how time-wise I am. Am I like? I have 15. Okay, I'm a little quicker. Public computer, standard ways to get it, going through Internet Explorer to get to that Katana thing. Internet Explorer is great because you can type in the path. So this is like you type in D : whatever, it brings up Explorer, and now you can access it. So again, we're looking from a public computer that probably has some sort of restrictions. Command line, if you can get up to the command line, I'll show you in a second. We'll talk about in a second how to do that. Go to the D drive, run it. Life is good. Windows keys are awesome. So a lot of times they'll restrict your environment so that there's no link to a lot of these things. So in Linux, you're like, oh, everything's there. I just know how to do things. But in Windows, you have to have links to stuff, and or you have to get to the command line. Just a big pain in the butt. So here's the Windows keys to run things, to get Explorer, searching. These are good ones to get access to the underlying system for the purpose, in this case, of running the toolkit. Microsoft Help is so helpful. They let you run a command prompt from Microsoft Help. That's way to go, Microsoft. So if you open the Microsoft Help, type in command prompt, it brings you to an article in there about the command prompt. That's one of them says, opening command prompt, saying, this is how you open command prompt. Oh, would you like us to do it for you? You say, thank you, and bam, you've got the command prompt. So that's probably the most helpful thing in Microsoft Help I've ever seen. Defeating the AV, I'm not going to go into this too much. I found that when you open the toolkit menu, it accesses all of the binary files to read their image. So in that case, if your AV isn't set to automatically scan, but only look at when you're loading things, it accesses all of that stuff. So avoiding going through the interface, you can instead just go into the portable apps directory and traverse through there to get what you want. Everything is labeled pretty well. You can find the stuff you're looking for. You look at the help for more information on what's in there. But not loading it through that way can be one way to get through the AV. You can kill the AV. Interpreter is awesome at that. There's lots of other stuff out there. The thing I want to focus on is right blocking Katana. So still running from flash drive, but being able to right block, which is pretty awesome. So why would we want to right block it? It stops the antivirus from deleting all of my awesome tools, and it stops viruses from installing on instead of turning me into a tool, essentially. So we're like, oh, this is great. It's all in one. I can do whatever I want with it. I'll plug it in every machine in the network. Well, one of them's almost guaranteed to be owned. So then you become the person who's spreading that around. Because in case you don't know, there's been a couple of things with nuclear power plants that went over USB. A couple of malicious things. So you don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be that guy. And so coming in an environment with USB, I had to figure out how not to be that guy. So this is it. That's what I should have titled this. How not to be that guy. USB write blockers. You can purchase them for forensics purposes. There's a lot of kits out there for forensic stuff that's like, government sanctioned ones, and the lawyers will be happy with them because you paid a lot of money, which means they work. They're expensive. They're hundreds of dollars for the forensic. They're huge. I imagine if you open it up, it's like, a line going from here to there with something tiny in the middle, and it's just a big block. But a lot of them, they'll do stuff like tell you the data transfer rates, and you just push a button. And they're fancy, and it's cool, and if that's your thing, great. But they're for us mortals, it's very expensive being able to do it. You can create an ISO with Katana, so if you're going to run your stuff from there, you can, you can't unless it's a rewritable. They're not messing with your ISO. It's not. That's not the greatest. I would say that's like alpha. It's there. It exists. I really haven't messed with it too much, but if you want to mess with it and tell me how it goes, that'd be great. So that warning label should come up with the previous one. But a lot of stuff is broken when you run it from an ISO because it's designed to modify itself. So, but anyway, the SD card stuff is the bomb. So instead of spending $300, $200, whatever, on a very fancy USB reader, you can buy a micro. Well, I have a micro SD. I like that, but you can just get an SD card for $10, $15, whatever. Yeah. 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 So Nick was saying that you can modify, I guess, hardware modify the USB device to prevent it from writing, which is awesome and a little and time consuming. So it's the things we do because we can. That's what happens. So that's a good option there. To just modify the flash drive. But the problem is undoing it, you have to like desolder or resolder or whatever, like, oh, let me put this back in. So if you want to put stuff back on there, you kind of have to do a lot of hardware work. So this is an easy option. There's a switch that says lock. You push it, and it locks. It's a very, very good design that it says it has an arrow that points the direction of the lock on this particular one. So well done. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy cool. It locks. It's that. So I have this is the micro SD adapter. It's one of those things that it's probably in the standard that says this should work, but people who implement flash drive readers, they don't read standards. They reverse engineer the hardware of somebody else in China, and we'll sell it for $20 cheaper. And who's going to complain about, oh, my flash drive reader doesn't do this because I paid $5 for it? Like, you're not, or I shipped it over from overseas. So they get by with it. So some of them support it, some of them don't. I bought a couple in preparation for this talk and tested them. Only one didn't work, and I bought like the one I'm using. Well, let's see. My pocket. Too many things in my pocket. Bam, which is okay. Here's my little the adapter that I've been using. This was like $5. And I bought, when I got the micro SD, it came with this adapter and the mini SD adapter. So that, this whole setup here, $30, $40, whatever, it's not crazy expensive. So yeah, you lock that, remount it. The USB card reader says, oh, okay, it's locked now. And, your operating system can't mess with it. There are also USB locks in the operating system, but I figured I assumed AV might be smart enough to disable that. I can't say that for sure. I haven't tested that much. But there's a registry key that says mount read-only, but then that just becomes a little bit painful because if you set it like that, if you're doing stuff and you set it to read-only, and then you leave, and then you get a call the next day, hey, I can't back up my stuff. You have to go, you have to embed this registry key. So this is a much easier, much cheaper, much quicker option. So yeah, that's it. That's done. We don't need no stinking Windows. That should have been. That's another good title for a talk. But that's exactly what I was referring to here. So if you want to run stuff in the toolkit, but you don't want to run the native environment because it's infected, if you're doing forensics or, for whatever reason you don't want to run the host system because you're afraid of logging, them monitoring stuff, how could you run the toolkit in another way? I'm all about just trying to figure out different ways around things. So BART PE, I mentioned it earlier. You can run most of the stuff in the Katana toolkit in here. It comes with a lot of stuff already. You can also run it under Wine in Linux. How many people? Most of the Linux people have messed with Wine at some point. It's awesome. It's like I don't want to say it's like the Cygwin and Wine are. They're similar. It helps you do the same stuff. So in Linux, because a lot of the live distributions are Linux, you can run some of these tools in Wine. And I'm hoping, well, I don't have a lot of time. I was going to demo that, but it's not that fancy. You hit Wine, and then the executable. There's a bunch of other flags you can do. And if it has the resources in Wine, it'll bring it up. And it works great because you can interact with the file system as though it's Windows. So like you can access it doesn't create a virtual machine. You access the system that you're on. So you can access your files on your disk so you're not like completely segregating. So you can do a lot of stuff running it. Like I really love WinDirStat. For anybody in here who does any sort of admin stuff or just wants to clean a system, WinDirStat examines all of the files and then color codes them and categorizes them by their type. So like you're like, oh, why is this enormous? Oh, it's the shadow file in Windows 7 is just huge. Thank you, Microsoft. I don't mean to hark that much. I use Windows 7. This is 7, but it's you have a podium. Sometimes you have to vent. Adding your own apps. So Windows, just install just in that directory. Linux, statically compile binaries. It's a cool thing to do. You can bring stuff with you. Statically compile basically means it's going to pull in all the resources it needs to run without without relying on the host system. So forensics, that's kind of cool. Or you want to bring Netcat with you without having to compile it. Basically, this is the compile free. What if they don't have GCC? It happens. You've got this stuff with you. Scripts, Python scripts. A lot of tools that we use are written in stuff like Python and Perl and Bash. So, oh, my water. Yeah. Yeah, this some crazy water, man. OS X, I don't know. That's just I don't use, as I mentioned before, I have the boat anchor, and that's what I've used on like the minimal testing I've done. It's got 10.4, I think. I'm pretty sure that's what it's running. So that's as far as I've gotten with it. I've been talking with some people online that have kind of been pushing me down that path and mentioning some stuff, but I just don't mess with it. So I'd love to have more stuff for OS X in here. Yeah. Yes, that's a great question. I put that in my notes somewhere, and I keep not looking down. He asked, does OS X boot from with Katana? So most of these are compiled for Intel platforms. So if you're trying to get this on a Spark, most of the stuff that's going to work, unless you're running Windows on a Spark, which I have no idea if that's even doable. That'd be a good investment, Microsoft. Anyway, that was OS X. Those are my focus. Yes, you can run it on an Intel platform. So yeah, most of those live systems, some of them aren't. Yeah, will run because it's an Intel platform. So a lot of all that live stuff that'll work on an Intel platform, in which all the current Apple products, well, all the current like laptops and desktops are. So you can do all of that. It would be cool, like I found Wine for Linux, for Windows, or for OS X. I don't know if there's some sort of emulator. I haven't seen Wine for OS X. I don't know what.
About Parallels for Mac is it lets you access your onboard file system, so you're not really separated. You're just in a fake environment. It's a real Windows environment.
Yeah.
It's well baked. Because I can run my security tools in my Windows Parallels, and it will go through the Mac file system for that.
Okay, that's a good point, and I forgot to mention that. A lot of people run Windows on their Mac boxes. They just really want a very silver computer. That's pretty much their mindset. It's silver. Look at this LCD. Oh, do you want to use their operating system? No. I can't run this software on it. So whatever. I'm going to install Windows, but it's shiny and it's got that Apple logo, and I'm the man. So yeah, she was mentioning that you can access a lot of the stuff from the Windows side in OS X on the host file system in Windows on a Mac on the OS X side. So that's one thing to consider. I think there are OS X portable stuff, but I don't think many people have looked into it. So I'm certainly not going to be the individual. Oh. Whoop. Is this door locked? I can just take it out. $100. Man, that's commitment. What's left behind on the systems? Just, me thinking ahead. The access logs, from running, I was saying it's portable, it's easy to use, you're not messing with the resources. Well, of course you're interacting with the resources if you're running in this live environment, or not the live environment, on the toolkit side. So, you have access logs, the USB history, Nick was talking about that, all the profile information for a USB device, very easy to fingerprint, forensics, so, that's always there. AV logs, even if you have it right blocked, they're still going to say, oh, I found this thing. That's the thing. Right blocking it is great for the AV. It doesn't prevent AV from blocking stuff. It just prevents it from deleting it. It's very annoying. I actually, and I forgot that I'd done this from a while back, but I put the zipped versions of a lot of tools in there because it kept getting deleted. But this was a year ago, left over from legacies, because it kept being deleted. So I'd go back, it'd get deleted, and I'd go back and re-extract everything. So that's why some of those, if you're looking around, you'll see some of them with the zip files for the small ones, because the AVs weren't picking up the zip version. That's a very complex way to attack. I'll zip it and unzip it. Maybe you won't be able to find it. External sources, network logs, other system stuff, so you're not blocking with any of that. Future work. I've pretty much talked about all of these things. Mobile device is the thing that will be cool. So that's why micro SD. How many people's phones use micro SD? So everybody else uses an iPhone, huh? Yeah, there we go. How many people's iPhones use micro SD? All right. So for most phones that are awesome, I pissed off everybody in this talk. This is going to be great if somebody watches it. If somebody ever gets to see these videos. So I think it'd be really cool to kind of put these ideas into a mobile phone environment where you're bringing around your stuff. You have to do forensics, so forensics is one thing, but just running your live stuff. A lot of them, you root them and they'll run a lot of cool stuff. Well, what if you could bring that around with you? I don't know. It's not as easy. This is great because I can go from any computer in my home and do all my stuff. You normally don't have multiple Android phones unless you're awesome, or you're deving it, or you're hacking it, or something. But this would be cool for various reasons. That's a future thing, and we'll see if that ever happens. But yeah, that's it. That's it for me. Do we have any questions, real quick? Yes. Oh, is that the USB drives in like the? Oh, just plug this into your computer. Oh yeah, sure.
No, you don't plug it in.
Oh,
It's
nice.
just a holder.
This is awesome. It's darn you call them.
Multiple micro SD card holder and have the.
Does it come in like like a shotgun shell belt? Yeah, that's awesome.
It's sdcardholder.com, I believe. But they only sell it through Amazon. You have to get it from Amazon.
Well, that defeats the whole purpose of putting it all on one flash drive. Thank you for completely all this work I've done is useless because you could just have one thing in your back pocket to run out.
So you can have like 80 gigs worth of storage. So you can have like you can push
Yeah, that's true. You could have your forensic set up, and you can have your pen testing set up, and okay, yeah, that's that. I'm feeling validated even more now. Yeah, okay. Okay, good insight. Anything else? Okay, I guess I'll turn it over. I'm probably at time now, so that's my info.
Give Ronan a hand.